just going to show the other. Upload. It should just be showing the, come on. Good, just showing the logo, perfect. But they can hear us as they come in. And then I will switch that in 2 minutes. We're going to start here in just a moment. Can everybody hear me?
I don't think I heard her start here in just a moment. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay between when you said that and when it broadcast.
Yeah, I expect about a 12-second delay, folks.
Yeah, I expect about a 12-second delay, thanks. Are you able to read chat in real time?
Yes.
There you are. I love that.
Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to Grandpa's Farm first live stream. You like my hat? I actually wear this up here in the winter time because it gets that cold. Now I think the chat, I can see the chat live just so everybody knows, but the live stream is about a 12-second delay after that, and I apologize for that. Is just the reality of internet up here in Alaska. So I'm going to go over this all again here in just a moment or two. Let's give it some time and see how many people come over to watch the live stream. But in the meantime, thank you everybody for the happy birthday wishes. I really appreciate it. It's been long 58 years. Tall Oak Farms. So you lived in Kodiak for 8 years. Yeah, well then you know exactly what we're talking about. It gets a little chilly up here. Thank you everybody for the birthday wishes. I really appreciate it here on my inaugural live stream as part of the Homestead Network. And Amanda, no, I did not kill this. This is a combination of wolf, beaver, and wolverine. So I imagine when Big Bear gets on here, he'll probably have a stroke when he sees my hat. He'll probably want one, but it does keep me pretty warm. Okay, so we're 2 minutes into this, so let me go ahead and get started. What I was going to do as an inaugural was kind of give everybody a little bit of the lowdown about who I am and a little bit of information about me. And then from there, I was going to segue into talk a little bit about some of the areas that I have some expertise that I can address. In regards to homesteading, I am not expert in all fields, but there are some things I've been doing for 58 years that I might know a thing or two about. So let me adjust that so you see the full hat. By the way, these full hats up here in Alaska, you got to wear a ball cap underneath of it because otherwise this part comes down over your eyes where you can't see. And when it's really cold, I pull the ball cap out so that it's down nice and warm, and I can tie this up nice and snug. Right now here in the cabin, it is exactly 60 degrees, so I really don't need this hat, but I thought you might all get a kick out of seeing a true Alaskan hat. Anyhow, for me, my profession is I am a real estate broker. I've been selling real estate most of my professional life. So I have a good expertise in that, and there's a lot of subjects we can talk about having to deal with buying a homestead and the kind of things you can do to save money and pratfalls and things you can watch out for so you don't get into trouble. So there's a lot of those types of subjects we can deal with. I've had livestock my entire life. When I was born, my parents had chickens. I have chickens now. I've had chickens for almost all of 58 years. There's been very few times I haven't had chickens. I've also had a lot of other poultry, turkeys, ducks, geese, a lot of horses. I used to own a riding stable. So I've owned hundreds of horses in my life, and I've had a horse. My first horse I got when I was 16. It was my cousin's horse. It was a Poco Bueno quarter horse, and I've had everything from that to a donkey to draft horses between then and now. Truth is, right now I do not own a horse because I'm wrapping up my farm here in Alaska, getting ready to sell it to move down to Ohio, which will happen here in the next year or so. And then I'll be getting down to Ohio, and I will be getting horses so I can have them there for my grandbabies, because I want to make sure my grandsons and granddaughters all know how to ride and how to work a team. So, Big Bear, what do you think of the hat, buddy? You need to get something like this for yourself down there to keep you warm. I see Big Bear's on there. I see a whole lot of my friends on here, Wheatree and stuff. Thanks, guys. I appreciate y'all jumping in and commenting. And for those of you that aren't commenting, well, jump in there and say hello, introduce yourself, and start talking to the folks. This is a lot of really good, really cool folks here. Really nice people. It's a good, safe place, so jump in. Okay, I'm gonna switch this out, guys, because I have Kara on the phone here helping me, and I can't follow everything all by myself, unlike the other channels where they have one person monitoring the chat and one person doing the talking. So I have Kara in my ear now so she can help follow the chat. I am moving to an area known as Lancaster, Ohio, southeast Ohio. Actually, I'd really like to be southeast of Lancaster, Ohio, down in the Hocking Hills, and in that area going down to the edge of West Virginia. Possibly even into West Virginia, but I'd really like to stay close enough to my grandchildren so that I can, pick up the kids from school and do that kind of stuff. So, and yes, Wayne, when I get to Ohio, we are definitely going to do some fishing, buddy. I want to go hit some of those big catfish down in the Ohio River. Used to do that when I went to college there in Athens at Ohio University. We used to go down to the river and catch those catfish, and man, there are some huge ones down there. Yes, the Hocking Hills are beautiful. In fact, my family had a family farm, 280 acres in the Hocking Hills. Unfortunately, when my parents passed away, it ended up getting sold, broken up and sold. And so then we moved on. And yes, Brad Talby lives in the Hocking Hills, right on the edge of it. So, JM at the Nut House. Hey, Grandpa, lived in Anchorage, Copper Valley, and Valdez. Very cool. Yep, Alaska is a fun place to live. Okay, so a little bit more about me. So I've raised livestock my whole life. I also used to be a stock jock, a stockbroker for a major Wall Street company. I hold all kinds of securities licenses, or at least I did in a past life. So I know a lot about the stock market, about annuities, insurance policies, mutual funds, all that kind of stuff. I do a lot of construction and carpentry. I have built 5 houses in my lifetime. I will be building a new one when I get to Ohio. Right now, I am living in a little tiny cabin I built up here in Alaska. As you can see, it's still got insulation on the walls. I haven't finished it out yet. This is a tiny 16 by 16 foot cabin. So, XZKT, you'll be about 2.5 hour drive from me after you move, Grandpa. That's cool. Hey, when I get down to Ohio, I expect to have a big party. There's a lot of folks that lived in that area. We're gonna put on a Homestead Network Jamboree because I'm not going to be too far from Brad, so we expect to have a pretty good time there. Okay, and then besides the security stuff, I've done a lot of shooting. I used to do a lot of skeet shooting and sporting clay shooting. I used to own a gun club, so I know quite a bit about shooting and gun reloading. Done a lot of that. Yes, Kitty, I used to be a stockbroker, and I will be honest with you guys, I got out of stock brokerage because I just couldn't fathom doing that for a living. My ethics just wouldn't allow me to continue doing that. If that tells you anything about that industry. I refuse to sell people stuff that they didn't need. So, all right. So, Kara, you still there in my ear? You're there. Okay. I just want to make sure. I hadn't heard you in a while. Okay. Will your Ohio location be unrestricted, or will you have to deal with zoning and codes and stuff? Kelly, it all depends on where you are in Ohio or where you are anywhere. A lot of places will have deed restrictions and limitations, covenants. I am going to try to ideally locate myself in a property where I don't have to deal with too much of that. One of the nice things about living up here in Alaska, we don't even have building inspectors up here. You want to build a house in Alaska, all you need to do is get a permit for a well and a septic system, and you can build anything you want. You want to, put together a plywood shack using old rusty nails. That's just fine up here. They really don't care. But Doc says, I once lived in a 20 by 20 hole and in Detroit. It was cold as hell. Yeah, well, that's kind of where my cabin is up here in Alaska. We're kind of cold as hell up here. Okay, so that's kind of my background. Real estate, securities, a lot of carpentry, a lot of animal husbandry. I am not a great gardener. I just am not. I'm just not a great gardener. I haven't had a tremendous amount of success. I have farmed, raised crops, and I will continue doing that. But I will not tell anybody that, I'm not going to tell you how to raise corn. It's not going to happen. I will tell you that I have commercially farmed chickens, ducks, turkeys, geese, and hogs. I have raised them to sell to other people and have had a lot of success with that. And so I do know a bit about raising chickens, ducks, turkeys, geese, and hogs and the economics of that. And also goat milk soap. We made a lot of goat milk soap and sold it here in the markets and stuff. Did a lot of bread baking at the farm market. I have started my own farm market up here in Alaska that's still going strong. When I moved down to Florida last year, I bailed on it, and some of the other people took it over. But it's a great thing to get involved with. I know we had a recent live stream from one of the other creators that was sort of down on those. Farm markets, it just depends on where you are and who the market manager is. Like anything else, you can have really good ones and you can have some really bad ones. I know in my experience, we had an awesome one. I see some folks commenting that they like the goat milk soaps. When I get to Ohio, I will be getting goats and I will start selling goat milk soaps from that location. Um, I just really enjoyed it. I'm sorry, say that. My cash crop in Alaska. Okay. Alaska, as most of you know, just legalized a new cash crop. And so I'm going to tell you something funny. Most of the money I've made this year has been drug money. Yes, that's right. It's been money from people who raise and sell marijuana. Not that I have anything to do with marijuana. I don't smoke marijuana. Well, I used to back in the day. I don't anymore. But I'm a realtor, and so a lot of these guys are buying up commercial spaces, and so a lot of the sales I've had recently has been people doing that. But my cash crop is I also raise peonies on our farm, which is a flower. Alaska is about one of the few places in the world where peonies will be at the perfect stage for the July and August weddings. So if a bride wants to have peonies, they pretty much come from Alaska during that time of year. And we just started it. We have three test beds, about 500 roots in the ground. If I stayed up here, I was going to go and build on that and add some more. And what was the other question, Kara? The animals, the livestock. What do I use to maintain my beard? As I pensively stroke my beard. I don't use anything to maintain my beard. It naturally comes in salty like this. I don't use anything special. I just soap. I just soap, and it grows just fine. Good diet. That's the thing, is a good diet. I am all farm and no factory in my eating. Even though right now, when I've kind of wound things down here in Alaska and I'm not gardening like I normally would, I make sure that I go to the farm market. I buy directly from farmers that I know. Know your farmer, know your food. And so I eat only whole foods, nothing genetically modified, nothing with preservatives or pesticides in it, and that makes a big deal in my health and in my life. So, okay, that's a lot to answer at one time. First question is, how do I keep moose out of the peonies? I don't. The moose leave the peonies alone. The peonies don't taste good. They do trample them sometimes by walking through the raised beds. Nothing I can do about it. We have a ton of moose up here. In fact, if you go back and look at some of my very early videos, you will see videos of moose that are within 10 or 15 feet of me. I have to carry a 2x4 just to go to the outhouse because a moose will oftentimes get between the cabin and the outhouse. They like where I snow blow in the wintertime. And so I got to smack them with a board to get them out of the way. How do I keep the peonies alive in the wintertime? We use raised beds, and here we get a lot of snow. We'll get snow come on in October, and that same snow will be here in April. Yeah, we don't. It's not like the lower 48 where you get snow and it disappears. You get snow and it disappears. Here we get snow and it just stays on the ground, and that protects the peonies from the cold temperature. Typically, we get a period of about 3 weeks of minus 30. And when that happens, everything gets really cold, and so you have to worry about that, especially with the critters. Let me talk about the animals that I'm raising. Right now on the farm, I have, and it's just me here, so I have chickens, ducks, turkeys, and hogs right at the moment. And that's all I wanted to do for myself. I didn't want to get too crazy. Um, I love my chickens, my laying hens. Unfortunately, I just bought these in the spring. They are just now getting to the age where they're going to start laying, and so I might get some eggs here in the next month or so. But then our daylight gets to be too short, and we won't have eggs now until spring. But next year I'll have eggs all year long. I do have to keep my greenhouse or my hen house heated. We do sort of an old time thing. Some of you old time farmers, Danny might get a kick out of this. Our outhouse and our chicken coop are back to back. It's all one building, and that's sort of an old school farmer's trick. You do that because that way you have the human smell right out there by the chickens, and it tends to keep the predators well away from the hen house. It works highly effectively. The chickens don't seem to mind the smell, and I certainly don't mind their smell. So, Grandpa, you're a steely-eyed missile man. All right, I like that. The question is, what am I going to do with my livestock when I go? Well, most of my livestock is going to go into freezer camp this fall. The turkeys and hogs will be gone this fall. Depending on what my schedule is, I may or may not get some more in the spring. If I do, I'm not going to be able to transport them with me across Canada. Canada is a disaster for trying to transport farm stock. So I will either sell them here, probably I'll sell them here and then buy new down there, unfortunately. Which is why I'm not getting goats right now. I'm waiting till I get down there to get goats because it would just break my heart. I really like my goats, and I would hate to buy them and then have to sell them. So the question is about hunting. Do I hunt moose? And yes, it's not really hunting moose up here for me. I mean, they're right out the window. I mean, literally, they're out my front yard, and I've got about 10 acres of overgrown willows right now, and so the moose come in here thick as thieves. I have what I call the farm moose, which are the local ones that I get to know pretty well. and so they're kind of almost pets, if you will. I don't want to shoot them, but we do hunt moose. We hunt up here bear. On my property, we have, just on my 80 acres, I have moose, bear, fox, coyote, ermines, which are a weasel in the weasel family. What else do we have? As far as driving, I'm going to drive down the Alcan. I'll load everything up in a U-Haul or in my own trailer, and I'll drive down the Alcan. Just a beautiful drive. As far as allowed to bring food, the dry foods and stuff that I have in storage aren't a problem. I can put them in. I'm not going to be able to bring any of my canned goods or wet stuff here because, of course, it will possibly freeze if I'm moving in the wintertime. So nothing that would require refrigeration. But during the summertime, yeah, it's not a problem. I can just load it in the truck and take it with me. I just can't open it up in Canada. I just have to, store it and just take it right on through. Uh, don't try to take any fresh fruits or vegetables. You're not going to get across Canada with those. And when I'm driving is about the only time in my life right now where I eat anything that I'm not preparing and growing myself because, you just can't take your garden with you. So how do I get the animals through the winter? Home Place Journal, we heat the buildings. The only animals I'm going to be wintering over are my chickens and my laying ducks, and both of those will be inside heated coops. The chickens are easy because the chickens are real easy because they'll get up in a roost, they'll get up high. I can simply put a heat lamp in there with a 250-watt bulb, and that'll generate enough heat and contain it in the ceiling of the insulated coop, and they'll stay inside that. As far as the ducks are concerned, that's a little different scenario because the ducks stay on the ground. So what I do there is I actually have an electric heated mat that I put on the ground, and they snuggle up onto that, and it keeps them comfortable. Teresa Dean asks, "Are your pens windproof?" No, Teresa, but we don't get a lot of wind here. We really don't get much wind here. It's not too bad. Um, Well, Big Bear, you're welcome to come up and trap before you leave, but realize, dude, that I live alone in a 16-foot by 16-foot cabin. So you're going to have to bring a place to live because I don't have any guest bedrooms. There's no couch for someone to sit on. My cabin I have my bed over here to my right. I'm sitting here at my desk. I can arm's reach the refrigerator. I've got the stove and stuff in front of me, the door there, the wood stove there, and that's all there is. There's just not a lot of ton of room in here. So um, it's just too expensive to go with the ferry with the goats. I could do that, but it's just a problem. And then Canada was just so difficult because Canada made us. We had to jump through a lot of hoops and the medical stuff and health stuff, and I understand all that. But then I had to have a special trailer so that as we're going across Canada, if the goats peed or pooped, none of that hit the ground. And then they told me that as we're going through, we had to stop halfway through and give them a 24-hour rest period, which I was told they were going to unload them from the trailer and let the goats get out and walk around and have a bit of an area to get into. Because we had 7 goats inside of a 16-foot horse trailer. Instead, they just made us stop at a motel for 24 hours, and the goats had to spend one more day in the horse trailer that wasn't necessary. So as soon as we crossed the border into Alaska, I mean, we went about 3 miles into Alaska after we crossed the border, and we opened the trailer and let the goats out so they could get out and stretch their legs and graze a little bit. They loved it. They thought that was awesome to get out of that damn trailer, but it is what it is. I noticed Tree was asking earlier about me setting some standards about what people could and shouldn't do. Sorry, Tree, I guess I should have done a better job with that, but I think you guys know what they should and shouldn't do. So I'm going to leave it at your discretion as to what to do there. Um, what's the question? Okay. Okay. As far as moose meat and how it tastes, moose is either my first or second preference for wild game animals. Moose runs a real second chair to elk meat. I really like both of them. Moose is a real dark meat, very beefy. So it tastes really good. It is probably one of the better, if not the best tasting of all the game animals. And I also, I grew up in Ohio and I hunted a lot in the West. So elk hunting and antelope hunting. Antelope's another one of my favorites too. And then what's the other question, Kara? Bear meat. Uh, yes, bear meat is gamey. However, let me preference that. Black bear is really good. I hunt black bear and I grind the black bear and mix that with pork for my breakfast sausage. It absolutely makes the best sausage gravy and biscuits is when it's half pork and half bear sausage. Bear lard is also much sought after by bakers for pie crust and such. Folks really like the bear lard for that. Now, on the other hand, grizzly bear, which I've hunted, and we don't hunt polar bear here, but grizzly bear is very gamey, and I've not found it palatable, which is why I tend not to shoot them. Run them off, we'll shoot over their head and run them off, but, I don't like to kill anything I'm not going to eat. Okay, what was the next question, Kara? Condensation in the animal housing. Yes, we have to use a lot of pine shavings and stuff to counter that. Not too bad with the heat lamps, but yeah, we do get some condensation. We do vent them a bit. And, it's just a reality of up here in Alaska. We have to be very careful about our choice of animals. Like with our chickens, I won't buy a chicken that has a high comb. I'll buy a chicken that has a rose comb because I know in the winter here that high comb sticking up, it'll freeze off and they'll lose it. We do have a tendency to lose combs, and we do have a tendency to lose feet sometimes in the winter. But that's just the reality of it. Let's see. Is it true that milk will take the gamey taste out? Big Bear, that's not been my experience. I've tried all kinds of things to help grizzly bear, but like I said, I enjoy black bear as long as I'm having that with some pork. I'm not sure I understand that. Oh, when do we start heating the animals and stuff? Uh, as soon as it gets below freezing, we start thinking about it. A chicken will generate 5 BTUs. So if you have 100 chicken inside of a chicken coop, that's 500 BTUs of heat that's in there that they will generate all on their own. So they tend to keep themselves pretty warm. But when we start getting around zero, we'll put the heat lamps on out there for them and try to protect them from the real severe cold. Okay, why did I move to Alaska and why did I leaving? This is going to answer. I see a lot of people are asking similar things to this. No, no, Beth, I did not read that book. Um, I moved to Alaska to support my daughter. I had a daughter. We were living in Montana, and she got into dog mushing. Expensive sport, folks. Don't ever let your kids get into dog mushing. It's just ridiculously expensive. But we supported her habit for years and years. But she did pretty good dog mushing in Montana, and we came up here and she ran the Junior Iditarod, which is about 170-mile jaunt out through the Alaska bush with just her and her dogs. And she got the humanitarian award for providing best dog care. She didn't place well, but she did pretty good. And anyhow, we moved up here because she needed some place where she had better trails and better snow for training her dogs on. So that's why we moved here. Now she's grown up. She doesn't dog mush anymore. In fact, she's moving to London and getting married. So there wasn't any point in being up here. And so my wife and I were going to develop a peony farm. So we started the peonies to do that along with my real estate and our homestead. But my wife decided to move down to Florida and divorce. And so I decided I don't want to live up here in Alaska by myself. I'm moving to Ohio to be closer to my grandsons, my sons and grandsons and their families down there. What's next, Kara, for a question, or should I answer Big Bears there? I'm gonna ask your Big Bears while you work on the next one. What's the most dangerous thing about living in Alaska? Big Bear, the most dangerous thing about living here in Alaska is driving on the roads. We got a lot of crazy drivers here all summer long. We have a lot of tourists driving their big RVs and stuff up and down the highway. And then in the wintertime, you know, it's dark almost all the time, and it's very cold, and the roads stay icy. They do not plow the roads here completely. They leave about a couple inches of snow and ice that gets packed down on the pavement. They grade that and cut lines in it, and we drive on top of that. So all winter long, we're driving on ice with studded snow tires. And here in the wintertime, the roads are the area that's plowed the most. So all the moose will come to the roads where it's easier for them to walk. And so we end up driving in the wintertime in the dark, and you just can't see the moose at night. In fact, when I'm driving in the wintertime, what I look for is an absence of light. When you're driving down the highway and you see a moose in the dark, it actually looks darker than the other dark ground around it. And that's how I know there's a moose there, because it just looks darker. Something about their hair just absorbs the light. They like a white-tailed deer, you know, the eyes will show up on a white-tailed deer, or the tail will show up on a white-tailed deer. Here in Alaska, if you come along and there's a moose in front of you, you're just not going to see it. What do I do for drinking water? I have a well. I have an electric powered well, and I have really great water here. It's not water here where I'm at. It's not a problem. Now, if you go north, you run into permafrost, and when you're up in permafrost, you can't have a well and you can't have a septic system. So they have their water and their sewage hauled in and out, and they put it in tanks. We do process all of our own foods in numerous ways. Yes, we do canning through pressure cookers. We do freeze some stuff. I mean, here in the wintertime, I could take a quarter and hang it on a hook outside and just leave it there. Wrap some wire mesh or something to keep the weasels out of it, but nothing's going to bother it. In fact, here they have what's known as a cache. They'll build a small little structure high up on poles, and then those poles will be designed to keep, weasels and stuff from climbing or mice climbing it. And they just store their meat up in the cache up high, because it gets frozen and stays frozen absolutely all winter long. You don't have to worry about it. Other than that, we pressure cook, we can, we salt, we smoke. Just any number of ways. Not too different than what you do in the lower 48, although we tend to do a lot more salting and smoking up here, especially fish. A lot of these guys will smoke fish. Wayne, when I get to Ohio, yeah, we'll go over to West Virginia and do some bear hunting, no problem at all. As far as what was the first part of that, Kara? I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, bear hunting here. Black bear hunting is open all year round on my property. Um, uh, Grizzly bear season just opened up on the 5th, just a couple days ago, as did moose. Bear rifle season and moose bow season just opened up on August 5th. But black bear hunting is year round, and on my property, I'm allowed to take 5 black bear. So we take quite a few. Travis, what do I use to hunt big game? Well, I'm going to try moving my camera around here. I don't know if you can see it up on the wall behind me, but let me click on something here that allows me to see what I'm looking at right now. Okay, Travis, up there is my 50 caliber long rifle and my pipe hawk. Um, so I like to go old school when I hunt here and use a muzzle loader. Just my personal preference. It depends on what I'm hunting, though. If I'm hunting something like ptarmigan or grouse, obviously I'll use a shotgun. I prefer a 22 for some of the other small game animals. But if I'm hunting moose or bear, you know, I go with the long carabine. I like my 50 game, so my 50 cal. Basics to living: brown bears are not a lottery up here where I'm living. Do I get condensation in the cabin? No, I heat the cabin with wood. When we first moved up here, this will be funny. You guys will get a kick out of this. When we first moved up here to the property, we moved onto this property. We moved up the first week of December. There was already 2.5 feet of snow on the ground, and the only thing we had to live in was a trailer that we had hauled stuff up here in. So we unpacked our 8 foot by 20 foot cargo trailer, and we lived inside of that. I wired up propane heater inside that, 30,000 BTU propane heater. And to give you an idea how cold it was, a 6-pack of beer sitting on the in front of the heater, about 5 feet in front of the heater, froze overnight. And that propane built up a tremendous amount of condensation. But when I built the cabin here, we heat it with wood, and with the wood, we have zero condensation. In fact, it really dries everything out quite nicely. I don't have any Sasquatch stories, but you know, if you were here earlier and saw me with my hat on, you know, you would know that I'm kind of the local Sasquatch up here anyway. Um, but as far as having cabin fever, no. There's always stuff to be done here on the farm. You know, I can always go out and play with the chickens and stuff, and the dog keeps me busy. Rarely do I experience any cabin fever. In fact, I found some old footage of us dog mushing, and that was something that we did quite a bit before my daughter went to London. In the wintertime, that was like our thing to do. So we maintain about a 50 dog kennel, and so we would take the dogs and go dog mushing all the time. Now, for those of you out there who thinks dog mushing is cruel, understand you don't know it, you don't understand it. Our sled dogs, and if I showed you some of the video clips, you will see our sled dogs love to go dog mushing. They just love getting on the line and pulling the sled and running through the snow. It's what they live for. To not take those dogs dog mushing would be equivalent to not taking a Labrador Retriever and throwing a tennis ball for it. They live for doing that. It's what they like to do. So I hope that gives you some perspective of that. Okay, Kara, do we have another one? I'm sorry? I do not get cabin fever at all year round. Big Bear, you asked where do I get that hat? I bought that hat from a local David Green furrier here in Anchorage. It was just a really nice hat, and it's warm. Coping with the times, I see you ask, do I ever bump into Dallas CV? Dallas actually trains on the same snow trails here as my daughter. He lives about 7 miles just south of us. I know Dallas really well, the whole CV family. Uh, all mooses are dangerous. The question is that they heard mama mooses are dangerous. Moose are the only animal that I know of that are born in a bad mood. From the time they're born to the time they die, moose are always in a bad mood. I've never seen a happy moose. Um, Female or male, I don't think it really makes much difference unless the female's got a calf near her, and then she'll be kind of protective of that calf. But keep in mind, moose are kind of dumb. They're not real bright, and there's really not much up here except for grizzly bears that bother them very much. So they're pretty tough, and they don't take any crap off anybody. They just do their thing, and they expect to be left alone all the time. Big Bear, you want to know how much? I think that hat ran about $125 for that hat. It used to have a much longer tail in the back, but I took that off because I know people with raccoon caps that have been killed by eagles and owls and stuff. They come in and land and put their talons in, so I make sure I don't ever do that. But I wear that hat when I'm outside and I'm trying to be still in the cold. Okay, I see a question here. It says, do they still let you snag salmon, or was that stopped? Don't get me started on salmon fishing up here. It's one of my real pet peeves. Up here, I live on Montana Creek, which is one of the best places to fish for king salmon and silver salmon. However, they've been letting all the guys out in the ocean net so many tons of them that by the time they come up here in the river, they tell us we're not allowed to keep any. So even though I see the salmon, and literally we had a flood not that long ago, and there was salmon swimming down the drainage ditch in the road in front of my place. So I could just walk over and pick them up. But you can't go to the river here and throw a line in and catch one and keep it. You have to do catch and release for the kings, or you can keep the dog salmon, but nobody wants to eat them anyway. Um, what was it about black powder? Do we have what black powder? Big Bear, I use an FFG equivalent. Sometimes I'll use Pyrodex for black bear. What is ptarmigan? Ptarmigan is just like grouse. It really tastes just exactly like a grouse. And yes, folks, a grouse tastes very similar to a chicken. A little bit, a little bit not so strong. It's a bit more subtle flavor. It's kind of like not a really robust flavor. They're really good. I like shooting grouse and ptarmigan, and I'll breast them out, and I'll take those breasts and wrap them in a little bacon and do them up that way. And oh man, they're just awesome. They're just absolutely awesome. Oh, smoked salmon? Is that what you asked? No, you can still catch salmon in different places. I have a sailboat down in Seward, and so I can go down to my sailboat and go out there in the ocean and catch some salmon. It's just up here, the regulations up here on the creeks and the rivers where they're spawning really limits our ability to be able to do that. I'm sorry, Carol, one more time. My favorite wild game meat from up here, moose. And well, I don't know. Eesh. Moose because I like a nice big moose roast or a moose steak, but man, bacon wrapped breast grouse is just pretty awesome. That's a that that hey, you know what? Browse grass for an hors d'oeuvre and a moose steak afterward. There you go. That's my favorite one. I see Beth ask any bush pilots near you. Beth, there are tons of bush pilots near me. I live just a little bit south of Talkeetna, Alaska, which is a huge tourist port. They take people flying in planes all summer long. The tourists flying them up around Denali and stuff. We have planes overhead all the time. In fact, if anything in my neighborhood, that's my irritation. Is I can't go outside and take a leak without some plane flying overhead. Not that I care, but it just happens. Where in Alaska do I live? I am 100 miles north of Anchorage, 200 miles south of, well, 200 plus miles south of Fairbanks. And to give you guys an idea of how remote I am sitting right now facing due west. If you were to go behind me, it's 180 miles or 160 miles or so before you cross the first road. So that's just all wilderness behind me, literally behind my cabin. You go that way, it's that far before you hit a road. And west of me, I've got 6 miles. I've got 3 miles to get down to the Parks Highway. Cross the Parks Highway, and from there it's 1,000 miles west to the coast without crossing a single road. That's how remote where I am. And yet, being that remote, there's the Parks Highway that runs north and south here, and just about 3 miles north of where my road comes into the Parks Highway, there's a little grocery store, a gas station, and a little hardware store, and a credit union. So here I am living way out in the middle of nowhere here in Willow, Alaska, and yet within 15 minutes I have all these services kind of available to me. Yet if I want to go to a Walmart, I've got about a 120-mile round trip down to Wasilla to go to the Walmart. What was the question? I don't know. Is what my age? So, I, I don't know. I don't know Ethan Ralston. I don't know who he is. So I'm afraid I can't answer that. I don't. have TV here on my cabin, guys, so I don't follow all those Alaskan reality shows. I used to watch some of those when I lived in Montana, and I can tell you when I got up here, I found out that they're all bunk. All of those shows are contrived and made and over dramatized, and they're just not true. So, home place, you must come in late. I talked about that earlier. I moved to Alaska because my daughter was a dog musher, and we moved up here so she could have better access to training trails and better snow conditions than what we had when we were living in Montana. What's that? I don't know what the Denali lottery is. I'm not sure what that is. I will tell you we have the only lottery up here that I'm aware of is we have the breakup lottery where everybody bets. You buy a time as to when the rivers are going to break up, and and you guys can't fathom this. I know in the lower 48, it gets so cold here in the winter, our rivers stop moving. Okay, the Susitna River, which is a huge river, actually stops flowing in the wintertime. It freezes solid, and so it all backs up, and nothing will float down it. You can, the dog teams, dog mush across it, the snow machines run across it, trucks drive across it. It freezes absolutely solid, and then in the spring, usually around April, we have what's known as breakup. And what breakup is when the rivers start to flow again. The ice breaks up and everything starts to flow again. I see Big Bear asked, do you think you will miss Alaska when you leave? Of course I will, Big Bear. There's some things up here I really like. I wish my family was up here instead of me moving to Ohio, actually, but not the case. Kotzebue. Yeah, Beth, I've not been to Kotzebue. I've not been to Kotzebue, but my daughter has. She's gone over there for some dog races. Um, there's a lot of dog races out in the villages that are off the road system that we don't get to. But no, I've not been to Kotzebue. Okay, 30-06. Travis is reloading some 30-06 ammo. Okay, cool. Yeah, Travis, if you're listening, I'm actually going to do some episodes here coming up about reloading. It's going to be a little bit. I like loading 30-06. It's one of my favorite cartridges. I like using um, a high quality round in that 180 to 220 range for deer, which is I assume what you're going to be going after. You can go a lot lighter with 30-06. In fact, I used to load some 90 grain sabots in 30-06 for shooting coyotes and stuff. It's a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that in future videos. No, I cannot see Russia from my yard, but if I drive 1,000 miles that way to the coast, I can see Russia. Um, Palmetto Paratrooper, I don't know how much the PFD was this year. I was down in Florida for 2015, so I'm not getting one. I believe it's around $2,000. And folks, for those of you that don't know, they actually pay us to live in Alaska. We get stuff here in Alaska for the oil revenue. So much oil is taken out of Alaska and pumped out that they collect taxes from the oil companies, and the profits from that are divided up amongst all the people that live here in Alaska. So we get what's known as a PFD, the permanent fund dividend, they call that. And typically it varies. I think last year it was $2,000 a person. So me, my wife, and daughter, we got $6,000 the last time we got a PFD. I will get a PFD for 2016. I don't know how much that'll be. We won't know until later on. And the Denali question, I just saw that go by. I'm going to address that real quick. Yes, you're talking about access getting into Denali National Park. And no, I've never applied for the Denali lottery to get in there. Denali National Park doesn't get anywhere near the traffic that gets into Yellowstone. When we lived in Montana, we were in Livingston, Montana, actually south of that in the Paradise Valley. We were the north entrance going into Yellowstone National Park. And so I'm accustomed to seeing all the tourism that Yellowstone gets. Denali doesn't get anywhere near that, but they have such few resources and it's so remote, they limit how many people can drive their own vehicle back in there. And that's the lottery that he's referring to. You can apply for a lottery and get a ticket so you can drive your car into the park. You know, I live up here. I see Denali every day. I drive through this area. I hunt through this area. I walk through this area. I don't need to drive through the park. It's not anything better or worse than half the stuff I see all the time. My internet here is comes in through my phone lines. Um, I don't know what they call that, but the local phone company that provides me my landline, I have the wire comes in underground, and unfortunately, my upload speed. I mean, you can see my picture quality is really poor here. My upload speed is really, really, really slow. So I had to really degrade the quality of my picture for the upload in order to do this. But apparently, it's working. We're not buffering, and we're getting a good signal. So that's pretty awesome considering how remote I live. Donna, my soil here, okay, that's a sort of an interesting thing. This property had never been farmed when we got here. And so the soil is, all we're in a boreal forest. We have our trees here are birch, aspen, and spruce. And so the soil here is, the buildup from that. We have tremendous plant growth here in Alaska, just phenomenal in a very, very short period of time. So things have to grow really quickly. In fact, I was just looking this morning when I was out for my walk, an area right out here in front of our property. Um, 3 years ago, when I had my horses grazed in there, that was bare ground. I mean, the horses had eaten it down. There was nothing there. And now here, 3 years later, there's willows growing in there over 20 feet tall. It has grown incredibly quickly. So our soil is very good. We're on the acidic side slightly. I got to add about 1,200 pounds of lime per ton, or 1,200, I'm sorry, 2,000 ton per acre is what we're adding right now. And of course our fertilizers to that, but our soil here is pretty good. We've got about 8 or 9 inches of good topsoil. Underneath that, we've got about 18 inches of volcanic ash, and then it's really big, rough gravel, wash gravel underneath that. Although there are some spots where we do have some gravel that pops up in various places. But yeah, we've got really good soil here. I was not in Willow last year during the fires, no, but actually I have a bunch of those properties listed on the market right now that have been burned. I've got 80 acres down there on the market that had been burnt over. And that was, for this area, that was a pretty good fire, but you have to remember, I'm from Montana and I'm accustomed to fires. 8 years with the fire department in Paradise Valley, Montana. I've gone out and put enough of the wet stuff on the red stuff to know, what's a real fire. We were down in Yellowstone during some of those fires, and so it was a pretty big fire for here, but nah, it wasn't really all that bad. I'm sorry, what's that? Um, Normally, yes, I do keep rabbits. Up here, I have not had rabbits, although I've got a ton of rabbits here anyway, just wild rabbits. From where we mow the grass and mow around, we have a lot of snowshoe hares, and both snowshoe hares and cottontails. I could shoot a rabbit any day of the week. I could probably step outside my cabin any morning and shoot a rabbit if I wanted to. Lily has a tough time with all the poultry running around. That's the question: is how does Lily do with that? She has a tough time with it. She's a Labrador Retriever, and so genetically she is inclined to retrieve them. She's supposed to run out there and grab the duck and bring it back to me, but she has very quickly learned. We've had a couple of errors. She has killed 2 chickens when they were little bitties because she got excited about it. She's just a puppy, but now she has learned that it's her job to protect them, and now she takes that pretty seriously. She'll go outside, and if they get too far away, she'll kind of herd them back towards the cabin, and she'll go out and bark at stuff and chase off the coyotes and foxes and stuff. She's becoming quite the farm dog. I'm real pleased with her. Yes, they've cut back on the oil. The question is, did they cut back on the oil dividends? Yes, they did. They cut back on the oil dividends this year and are probably going to cut back on the oil dividends pretty substantially. You know, you guys down the lower 48 have had the advantages of low fuel prices recently. They've dropped down and are staying low, which is great for everybody in the lower 48. But our economy up here in Alaska is really based on that oil revenue, and so it's hurting our economy up here pretty much. It's deflating property values and land values are going down, so it makes a big difference. Well, yeah, Kara is asking me if we're going to run a little late because I'm so behind in answering questions. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys to vote on it. The Homestead Network does not have somebody following up behind me right now, so I need you guys to tell me whether or not you want me to go late or not. I am certainly more than willing. I don't have anything I got to go do right now. Kara, you okay with staying on the phone and helping me? Cool. Yes, the question is, am I going to do rabbits when I get to Ohio? And yes, the answer is yes, because rabbit manure is one of the best manures you can use for the garden and stuff. And I plan on really expanding and increasing what I'm doing with my own gardening and stuff. That's an area I'm looking to learn about. In fact, I'm going to be picking Big Bear's knowledge about that because Big Bear is got a strong background in that. So we'll be doing that. Oh, cool. Well, Travis, the question, I was just being told about the statement about Travis being happy. Travis, buddy, I'm glad you're watching and following along. I'll be happy to do some other stuff, and comment, get on the videos that I do and make some comments. If there's something particular you want me to cover, let me know, and I'll be able to jump in there. I see a question from Beth real quick. Does Alaska have huckleberries and blueberries? We have huckleberries up here, and we have tons of them. Unfortunately, up here, I have to carry a shotgun when I go hunt for huckleberries because we have obviously a lot of bears, and you're competing with them for the huckleberries. What the question is, what's the price of land? Well, land is okay. I'm a real estate broker, and so my answer is it depends. And I'll give you an example. Really good, high quality, developable land that's ideal for a subdivision is going to garner top dollars here. Um, uh, Over here on Willow, where the fire was, I have 80 acres on the market for $58,000. It was a beautiful piece of property. It's mostly dry. It has a little bit of swampy area in one corner, but the rest of it's dry and developable, but has been burnt over. So there you can buy 80 acres for 58,000. I've got some about 1 acre properties that I have on the market for 10,000. The old days of being able to buy land really super cheap up here don't exist anymore, but that's still pretty darn good pricing. The question is, do I buy or make my mosquito repellent? I buy my mosquito repellent, but I try not to use any. Well, I tend to just layer up, and I have head nets. I have them put up right now, but I have nets that I pull over my head and gloves that I put on. I don't like putting the poisons and the chemicals on me. I don't feel good when I wear bug spray. So I usually put big clothing on, and then I will put spray on the clothing. But that's it. Big Bear wants to ask how much from my homestead. Big Bear, I have 80 acres with a well and a septic system and a dry cabin on it and 500 peony plants, and I have it on the market for 279,000. And I was getting a bunch of people looking at it until my wife made me take it off the market. And so while she and I are going through the divorce process, I have it off the market. Big Bear wants to know how long my growing season is. Well, let me put it to you this way, Big Bear. I expect our first frost here in about a week or two. We can't put any seeds in the ground here until late May because our ground is too cold. And if we have to have everything harvested and brought in by pretty much August 15th, because then we're done. So I listened to some of these videos, all you guys talking about fall planting. Yeah, we don't have fall here. We have a very short summer, and then we have winter. Can I get Dallas? The question is, can I get Dallas or Mitch Seavey in any video? I might do some stories about dog mushing. We've been real big in the dog mushing community here. The year before last, I was actually the volunteer coordinator for Junior Iditarod. I don't have my, let me pull it out of my laundry basket next to me. There's my Junior Iditarod shirt. Um, we've been really active in the dog mushing community, so I know all those guys. We're good friends with almost all of them. So I may do some filming and get some of them. Junior Iditarod, it's easy. I can film that without a problem. You get around Iditarod and they get all huffy because, we're not paying them to do that. They're kind of buttheads in that regard. Um, how do I deal with daylight for that long? Well, it's a balancing act. In the summertime, I can go outside and it'll be midnight and I can see, and it would be the equivalent of being in Ohio, let's say, about a half hour before dark. That's what it's like here at midnight. But then the sun barely gets down below the tree line and then starts coming back up again. All summer long, we have daylight all the time. And so, to sleep, you just black out your curtains and go to bed. But the first year here, I have to admit, the first year here was really tough. When we were building this cabin, and that was even in the wintertime, we'd get working on it, and we would get really tired and then realize we'd gone way too late. In the summertime, what did I build here in the summertime? Oh, I built the cabin for the in-laws or the outlaws, and it was 11:30 at night, and I'm like, man, I'm really getting tired. What time is it? And 11:30, it was like 2 hours past my bedtime. So, of course, the other side of that coin is here in the wintertime, it's just dark. It'll get dark here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and stay dark till 10 o'clock the next morning. The question is, can I rent my property since I can't sell it right now? Unfortunately, I've been told that I can't do that. I can't change. I can't give anybody an interest in the property, that would be if I rented it. I'm just kind of stuck up here, and frankly, I need to sell this place to take the proceeds from this in order to buy myself a place in Ohio. So, okay, what's the next question? Big Bear's funny. You have to compete with the other voices in my head. That's funny. Okay, so what's the next question? Do you have one, or are we kind of caught up? Well, I see Teresa Dean. Teresa Dean's asking me, how do I deal with depression in the dark season? Teresa, there's just so much stuff to do here in the dark season. It's really not all that depressing. I'm a real estate broker, so I work, obviously, and it's just nighttime, and so you do your work. We live by headlamps. I look like this all winter. I have my headlamp on my hat. In fact, you go into the grocery store here in the middle of the winter time, and everybody's walking around with their headlamp on. You just carry a headlamp on you all the time. If I'm awake, I have a headlamp on my head. So I go out and feed, I have to use a headlamp. I go to the outhouse, I have to use a headlamp. You go out, you just carry it with you all the time. So I don't typically get depressed anymore now. And, I was depressed over the marital situation and all that kind of stuff, but I'm over that. And frankly, and this is something I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit, and I'm going to talk about here since we're going into overtime. You guys have really saved me in a lot of that regard. I was depressed and bummed out, and there's such a incredibly wonderful group of people here in in the chat and on my videos and commenting on stuff. And I got to tell you, it's just lovely. It really has helped me every time that, getting a letter from the lawyer saying that I can't sell the property. I'm going to be stuck here for the summer, really bummed me out. You guys noticed I didn't have much content coming out, but then I started getting all these wonderful comments from you guys that are watching my videos and saying stuff. And it's just been awesome. And I've been getting a lot of support from my family in Ohio. My ex-wife calls me on a regular basis. Johanna, if you're watching, thank you. She'll call me and that cheers me up. My sons will get me on Facebook and talk to me and send me pictures of the grandkids and stuff. And that's all awesome. So all that stuff has really, honestly, has really saved me. It's really put me into good spirits. And so I'm going to be creating a lot more content. A year ago, on my birthday in 2015, I was in Florida. My wife had left me and I thought my life had ended. Here I am. And on that birthday, two of my sons had sent me Facebook things saying happy birthday, and that was it. My two sons, and that was all I got for my birthday. So that was pretty depressing. This year, oh my gosh, I've had, yesterday people were calling me up after midnight on the East Coast wishing me happy birthday. This really wonderful lady called me up and sang happy birthday to me like I was John F. Kennedy. It was awesome. And now, I've got all these other comments, and my son called me and woke me up at 6 o'clock this morning. That was great. So it's been really wonderful. It's been really wonderful. You guys have saved me. Between you and my family, it's just been awesome. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. You guys rock. Wayne's saying he wants some moose meat. Wayne, I don't have any moose meat in the fridge right now. Otherwise, I'd send you some. Maybe this fall, moose season's open. Well, both seasons open right now, but I don't have any bulls. I won't shoot a cow, and I don't have any bulls on my property right now. I've been looking for them. So, Beth wants to know what I do in a medical emergency. I die. My father-in-law, you may have seen in one of my videos, I had to drive my father-in-law to the hospital. He had a cardiac event. And so we loaded him in my truck, and I drove him the 60 miles or so down to Wasilla so that he could go to the hospital. Even though I've asked them to leave the property, I'm actually in the process of I have to evict them to get them to leave because they won't leave. This is my ex-wife, soon-to-be ex-wife's parents. But he was feeling poorly, so I drove him to the hospital. And that's what you do. If you're sick, you go down to the hospital. Now, there is an ambulance service over here. But by the time you call them and something comes up, it is what it is. And of course, I'm here alone. So if I'm cutting firewood and I cut my leg off or something, well, it is what it is. The price you pay for living out here. Teresa Dean was asking, isn't it true that Alaska has the highest suicide rate? Teresa, that is correct. There are a lot of misguided, sad people up here in Alaska. Alaska attracts all the wackos. A lot of people think all the wackos go to Montana, the Unabomber and stuff. They have nothing on Alaska. You got all these crazy people that come up here thinking they're outside the rule of law, or they come up here trying to escape whatever their reality was that they had a problem with the lower 48, only to find out that they have the same reality up here. It's just tougher to exist. When you live like I do and where I do, my fuel costs alone for running down and going to the grocery store or to go to Lowe's or Home Depot or something, it's just something more you have to figure into your budget. So that's less money you have to deal with. So it can make it difficult. And so, yeah, the suicide rate here is really high. And I will say that our Alaska State Troopers are kind of quick on the trigger as well. They have, if you're out of line, they have no problem shooting you up here. So they keep everybody together. Beth, I see you're asking, does Alaska still have more men than women? Yes, it does still have more men and women. But you got to get online and check out the women's competition in Talkeetna, Alaska. Talkeetna, Alaska puts on a homesteading women's competition where women will go in there and compete to see who can do the best job of, washing laundry in a bucket and cutting firewood and chopping ice for refrigeration and all those kinds of Alaskan homestead women kind of jobs that have to be done. So get online, look up Talkeetna, Alaska, and the women's competition. It's pretty funny. So the question is, when it's all dark here in the wintertime, how does somebody deal with the depression? Depression's a serious issue up here. It really is. I'm fortunate. I was smart enough to get myself a dog. You guys have seen Lily in my videos. She's my best buddy, and she's always cheering me up. One of the reasons why I have all the critters here on the farm is because I just enjoy being with them. Yesterday it was absolutely hysterical. I set my turkeys out. I had them in a pen, and I put them out so they could free range for the first time. And so they're about the same size as my ducks. So they went running over to the ducks because the turkeys are white, the ducks are white. They thought, hey, you're like us, and that scared the ducks. So the ducks went running, and when the ducks went running, the turkeys chased after them. Well, they did about 4 laps around the cabin before they finally wore themselves out. It was just pandemonium. I went outside earlier today, and there's just feathers everywhere. You think I plucked a chicken outside because they're just all running around, carrying on, trying to, establish the pecking order and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. But having a farm and having farm animals is without a doubt one of the best ways to combat depression. Just getting out there and watching your chickens get out and struck. My little bitty roosters are just now starting to crow. It's just absolutely hysterical to see this little young rooster get out there and kick-a-doodle-doo. And, he's just got this horrible crow. He's not a big mature bird yet, and it's just really funny, and it's fun to watch. So, about the smokes that are here, snakes. Okay, the question is, what kind of snakes do we have up here in Alaska? We don't. Alaska doesn't have snakes. It's too cold for them. Snakes are warm-blooded creatures. They cannot survive up here. Reptiles, I don't think in this part of Alaska we have any reptiles. There's some frogs. We do have some frogs. I have seen some frogs up here, but we don't have any like salamanders or newts or snakes or anything like that. It's just too cold up here. We also don't have any skunks. There's no skunks up here in Alaska too, which is nice. Do I have a what for my deer? Uh, yeah, somebody is asking if I have a cunny chuck for my deers and such. I don't know what that is, so I'm gonna have to say no. I don't have a cunny chuck for my deer. We don't have deer here. Where I'm at here in Alaska, there's no deer. Oh, for my gear. Okay, I misunderstood the question. I'm sorry. He was asking me if I have a cunny chuck for my gear. I still don't know what a cunny chuck is. I am in the process of building a hard shelter for this coming winter for all my tools. They were up here inside of greenhouses, and well, those got crushed in the wintertime, so they'll be moving in. Well, folks, I really appreciate all the nice comments and stuff. I can't tell you how much it helps and how much it just thrills me to have all you guys in my life right now. It's just awesome. I am watching some of the comments, and Teresa Dean says no reindeer. Teresa, we don't really have wild reindeer here. We have caribou. Caribou move in herds, and they tend to be to the north of me, although there is a guy here in Willow not that far away that has pet reindeer. He often is walking down the street with them. Like you'd walk a dog, he goes down and walks his caribou. And yes, they are good tasting. but they're small. You know, I always thought caribou were really big. They're actually smaller than a white-tailed deer, and they do taste good, but not great. Travis wants to know if there's a good market in Alaska for hunting guides. Absolutely. But if you're going to be a hunting guide in Alaska, you better be tough. These guys will go out and they'll go sheep hunting. And, you know, I've heard these folks down in Virginia and West Virginia talk about their mountains. They ain't mountains, kids. Those are hills. Up here, we have mountains and shale and rock. Being a hunting guide up here is tough. It is really tough work. It can be wet. It can be cold. Weather conditions can be horrible. Mosquitoes can swarm in. And I would not want to be a hunting guide in Alaska. As much as that sounds like a wonderful thing, I wouldn't want to be a hunting guide in Alaska. Okay, I saw that as it went by. I've not heard it called a cunny chuck. We always called it a root cellar. And no, I don't have a root cellar for my. I certainly wouldn't put my tools in it. With all the moisture we get around here, you know, a cunny chuck here would flood unless you had it underneath your cabin where you could protect it. We have a pretty shallow water table. Actually, where I'm at's not that bad. Our water table is down about 30 feet here, but some parts of Alaska, the water table is just, you know, a couple feet under the surface. So the Quantum Man says, Grandpa's farm, listen to me. Okay, I don't know who that guy is. Okay. Brent says, Alaska, the Rockies, Sierras, Cascades are real mountains. Yes, Beth, I agree with you. The Rockies, the Sierras, and the Cascades are real mountains, but the hills in West Virginia and Virginia and stuff, those aren't, you know, the Appalachia, those aren't real mountains. Those are hills. And I lived in Alaska or in Montana in the Rockies. Those are mountains, but I can tell you the mountains up here in Alaska are younger mountains, and so that makes them more difficult. They're just, for lack of a better term, they're sharper. The rocks are sharper, the points are sharper, they're taller, difficult to hunt. So, okay, do we have any other questions? Did I miss anything, or do we have everybody? Oh, cool. Okay. Well, then let me just cover a couple other quick bases. I kind of told you a little bit about me in the beginning. Give you a little other things that I like. I'm into sailing. I like to sail on sailboats. I scuba dive. I'm an advanced open water diver. Did a lot of scuba diving. I used to be a 4-H instructor. Did a lot with 4-H, shooting sports, and you know, a whole bunch of stuff, woodworking and other things. I used to be a CASA guardian ad litem in the 6th Judicial District in Montana, where I worked and helped as a child advocate and volunteered for that, which was a lot of fun. So that's just some of the other things that I've done. I've owned a riding stable. I've owned a tourist business. And I don't know, I guess that's about it. So I guess we're getting pretty close to. Go ahead. Okay, Lonely Prepper, I see that. Since you're more in the southeast, ever hit 50 below? It does. I've seen 50 below here once, but for the most part, you got to go a little bit further north of me, up around Fairbanks. Fairbanks, I don't know if you guys want to look it up, but if you get online and check the 50 Below Club, the University of Fairbanks, they have a sign on the campus that shows the weather. And when it hits 50 below, a lot of the students will go out there stripped down to their swimsuits and take pictures of themselves with the sign saying minus 50. You know, just one of the kind of the crazy things that us Alaskans do to occupy our time, I guess. So anybody else got some questions for me? Did you do any driving up there? Diving. Big Bear, I don't do any scuba diving up here. The water is too cold. I'm a wimp. I am a warm water diver. I'm trying to follow along here. Yeah, I think we are caught up. Wayne says, let me tell you about sailing. Wayne gets a sailboat. 10 minutes later, well, Wayne's dead. Sailing is an art form. I've got a 31-foot cow down in Seward that I'm selling right now. Beautiful sailboat. Love it. Love doing a lot of sailing. Good fishing too. Yes, Big Bear, I could use a dry suit, but even with a dry suit, it's cold. So, Beth, I appreciate you telling me that I'm awesome. I really appreciate that. You guys are awesome. And yes, everybody, please give a big thanks to Kara for helping me out. It's just me here. I don't have a sidekick to read the questions for me. So Kara's been good enough to read them, down in Utah where she's at, and then she's telling me over the phone. Great group of folks as guests in Grandpa's room. Yes, Sweet Tree, I agree. I didn't see that you had to whack too many people with a wrench. In fact, I think only one person got put in timeout, and actually I haven't seen him come back since. I hope he didn't take offensive to that. Was that Doc that you guys whacked, or I don't remember who it was. Is Quantum Boy not behaving, Alderman Farms? I didn't see his thing go by. Yes, Kara's done a wonderful job. She's in my ear, and that's really helping. Weetree says, nope, only one got nailed by Kitty. Kitty, who was it that you nailed? I didn't see who it was you nailed, so I thought it was Doc or Grizz or one of those guys, but I'm not really sure. He was back afterwards. Okay, good. I wouldn't want anybody to get upset that they couldn't be here and participate. But yeah, I can understand why you want to watch language, because there are some young kids watching on here. So Wayne says, I wore a dry suit one time and I looked like a 5-pound pack of sausage trying to fit in a 2-pound case. Yeah, it's probably about me too, Wayne. Keep in mind that my size, anything like that, I have to have made custom. So a dry suit's probably going to cost me about $3,000. I don't wish to dive in cold water that bad. And even though you've got the dry suit on, your face is still exposed, and I'm just not into that. Freaky Geek, thank you for the birthday wishes. I really appreciate it. Good night, Tommy. See you guys later. Good night, Alderman Farms. Watch Tommy. Yep. Okay. Simply Circus saying the wife won't go in a mud puddle due to her fear of sharks. Hey, there's nothing wrong with sharks. They keep the oceans clean, So the Quantum Man wants me to give him a shout out. Okay, buddy. We don't usually do those on this channel, but I'll give you a shout out. Quantum Man, we see you. Teresa Dean, so Papa, where in Ohio, Southern Ohio are you going? I'm going to be going to Lancaster, Ohio, southeast of Lancaster, Ohio. And Big Bear, you see any killer whales? Yes, we see killer whales. We see a lot of whales out here. In fact, last time I had my boat out, I had some come right up to my boat and were kind of nosing around near me. I feared for my rudder. They were so close. So that's something you got to be careful about. Lonely Pepper, you're right. Ice diving is not what it's cracked up to be. We did some ice diving when we were in Montana, and that cured me ever wanting to do that again. My Pie, good night. Okay, Kara. Cool. Weetree Bonsai is saying, Grandpa, Quantum Man is 10. Oh. Teresa Dean wants to know how close to Kentucky I be living. Lancaster is about a 2-hour drive to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's on the Kentucky border. Although if I drive down closer to where Wayne is, probably only about an hour and 10 minutes from Kentucky border. Shouldn't be too far. Wayne, are you still in here? You can probably give a better answer to that than I can. Did I freeze up? Did I freeze up? I see Basics to Living saying froze up. Maybe you need to refresh. I'm actually, guys, I got to tell you, I'm really pleased that I'm not buffering hardly at all, and my video track is just a little bit after my audio track. I touch my head or do something occasionally so I can see how long it takes for that to show up on video. We started out with a 12-second delay. Yeah, now I'm about a 30-second delay. It's building. I think every time we buffer, it adds just a little bit each time. Oh, Missy and Travis, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys following and sending the hugs. That's awesome. You guys rock. Beth saying I got to live in a real mountain area and closer to the ocean. Beth, if you want to do that, then you gotta look at the Sierras in California, I guess, to get near the ocean and still be in the mountains. Wayne says Lancaster is about an hour and a half from me and east 3 minutes to Kentucky. So there's the answer. Kelly Houston says it's on point from this end. Very good. Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that. Surprisingly, for as remote as I am up here in Alaska, it looks like my sync's been pretty good. Coming through pretty cool. Is there anything else you guys want to discuss? Did you have any questions for me with my background you want to talk about? Oh, you know what? For those of you guys that stayed, I got a little tidbit for everybody. I was thinking about making a list of things that I wanted to talk about here on my list. And one of the things that came up was talking about, obviously, real estate, because that's what I do for a living. But I got a good thing for you to think about. If you're buying land and you're going to build yourself a farm, here's what I would, here's a suggestion for me. It's been in my experience. If you're going to build a chicken coop, if you're going to build an outbuilding for your critters, build it on skids instead of attaching it to the ground. In other words, don't dig post holes and set posts in the ground and build on top of that. Put down a skid of some kind of treated material and then build up on top of that. Now, the reason why I'm asking and suggesting you do that is because if you build on top of the ground as opposed to connecting it to the ground, it is personal property and not a capital improvement to your property. So you can't be taxed on it. So if you build yourself a big chicken coop and, you know, the local tax guys come along and see that that you've added this building to your property, if they come look at it and see that it's not attached, then as long as it's not connected to the ground, it's personal property and not real estate, and you can't tax somebody on that. Now, that's what I've experienced in Alaska, I've experienced that in Ohio, and I've experienced that in Montana. Where you live might be a little different, but, you know, just something to think about when you're building and developing your farm. Make your buildings portable. That doesn't mean they have to be any less structurally sound. If you go back and watch one of the videos, I'm building a storage shed here for all my tools. It's built on a skid. It's not connected to the ground. I could load it up and haul it away if I wanted to. And because of that, they can't tax me on it. So, Freaky Geek wants to know, does that go for Canada as well? You'll have to check with your local municipality. Ask them. They'll be the ones that should be able to tell you. I don't know if that. I've never sold real estate in Canada. Eh? Sorry, I couldn't help it. Teresa wants to know if I'm going to sell real estate in Ohio. I hope not. I'm frankly, and to give you guys a little insight, a little behind the scenes of Grandpa and why I'm doing this. I'm really hope to develop my YouTube channel so I can make this a full-time occupation. I would like to get enough subs and have enough income coming in through YouTube and through my Patreon account. Yes, I have a Patreon account. You guys can check that out and go look at it if you wish. I would certainly appreciate it. But I'm hoping to build this up so that I can have this as an income, and that way I can focus full-time on providing good content to you good folks and not have to sell real estate anymore. I will keep that in the background as something as I can always fall back on. But I probably will sell real estate initially when I get there. I would just really prefer not to. And so since I'm delayed here in Alaska for at least a year, waiting for the divorce to get finalized, I'm going to use this time to really put all my efforts into my YouTube channel and see if I can provide you guys with a lot of good content and build this up. Okay, so unless anybody's got any other questions, we're We're at an hour and a half, just past the hour and a half mark. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up unless you guys got some questions for me. And if not, then we'll wrap this up. I think the next. Oh, wait a minute. I got to do that as he pensively strokes his beard. Ha ha. Had to shake the papers at you because Brad was just talking about that earlier, so I had to add that in. Let's see. Today is Thursday, so Friday tomorrow. Go for Green Living is from 9 to 10. I don't know what the schedule changes are. Big Bear, you've moved to Tuesday, isn't that correct? If you're still on there, I think Big Bear's moved to Tuesday, so he's not on tomorrow. I think tomorrow we only have Go for Green Living from 9 to 10. I don't know if we have anybody else, but if not, we'll play it from here and see where it goes from there. And if there's anything in particular you guys would like to cover next week, please let me know. Get on the comments and put something in. I had some ideas about doing some more topics talking about GMOs. We could talk more about, life up here in Alaska. So if you have things that you're interested in, please get in the comments after the live show here and enter in what you would like to do. Okay, Big Bear is saying he's doing 2 shows. Yep. Okay, so you're going to do 2 shows. So are you on tomorrow then, Big Bear? Because you were originally scheduled to be on at 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern time. So, wow, that's pretty aggressive doing 2 shows a week. But okay. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna end this here. I really appreciate you guys. I really love you guys. I mean, I can't tell you how much it's helped me to have all these great friends out there and people to follow along and talk to. And please do like and subscribe and come back often. Make lots of comments, and we will talk to you later. Okay. Thanks, guys.